Welcome, everybody, to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. Along with Vincent Turner, your host, I'm Harper LeBel. Thank you for tuning in. Here we are, another week. Let's look at some of the local games that are taking place here at the collegiate level. Have you ever heard about this one? Georgia and Alabama? Have you ever talked about that one before? How about that? We'll get to that in just a minute. That obviously will be the top-seeded game for this week, but we'll address that in just a couple of minutes. We'll put our insight on that particular game. But what a matchup between two powerhouses. How about this? Georgia Southern, they travel from Statesboro up to Atlanta against Georgia State. Vincent, your thoughts on that game?
Interesting game. You got Georgia State under Dale McGee. Made some lot of noise, had a big-time win 2 weeks ago on Vanderbilt, who seems to be good after Vanderbilt played Missouri real tough. And then Georgia Southern. Man, J.C. French, local guy from Roswell High School, is doing his thing down there in Statesboro. I like that game. That's going to be a pretty good matchup of two teams right now that's playing good Division I football.
Yep, absolutely. And then Mercer travels to Wofford. Now, one thing at Mercer, this was news to me. Vincent, you pointed this out a few days ago. Their freshman, Khalil Moody, collapsed on one of the last plays in the third quarter with just a couple of seconds left to go. He falls and has to be revived. He fell after Citadel had run a play. The medical staff and the trainers came out to help take care of him. It took over 15 minutes. Now, oddly enough, he was taken to the hospital where just earlier in the day, there was a cross-country runner who at Mercer, they were having a dual meet, who had passed while they were running. So a very fragile day, if you will, from a medical perspective. There on Mercer's campus, but they travel to Wofford. Mercer's got a pretty good team this year, don't they, Vincent?
Undefeated. Mike Jacobs is doing a phenomenal job, and I want to say kudos and prayers and blessings to Mr. Moody's family.
Yeah, absolutely. With him and him as well. Let's not forget him. He's the one that obviously had a condition. I believe it was related to his heart. Please don't quote me on that, but we obviously want him, one, to be healthy, and two, if he's able to return to the football field, to do so as quickly as possible. UT Martin travels down from Tennessee. They'll be traveling to Kennesaw to take on Kennesaw State and the Owls. Kennesaw's doing all right now, aren't they, Vincent?
Well, they 0-3 based on the fact they played three tough teams to start their season. Brian Bohanna, I think over the years has done an outstanding job in building their program. And you know what? Out there in Kennesaw, Georgia, go out there and support the Kennesaw State team. It's homecoming. Homecoming.
There'll be pretty girls on campus. Well, we mentioned Georgia and Alabama. There are ties at the lower levels as well, where North Alabama will be traveling to West Georgia.
Joel Taylor, West Georgia's 1-2. I said this gentleman was a good football coach, comes over from North Carolina. Look for West Georgia to bounce back against North Alabama.
Yep. And West Alabama will end up traveling down south to Valdosta to take on the Blazers.
Got to give much respect to the head coach, Tremaine Jackson from Houston, Texas. He got that Valdosta State program rolling, and they got a good quarterback, Sammy Edwards. Remember that name. He's doing his thing down there in Valdosta.
Well, and as you can see, Georgia Tech has a bye this week, so they'll return next week into action. But until then, we've got our Super 7, the games that we think that have the highest amount of volume in terms of what we're looking to see. And we start with a Friday night matchup between 2-2 Virginia Tech. They go up against number 7 and undefeated Miami.
Hey, it's Cam Ward time. He's been the most talked about college football player over the last month. Some people saying he's the Heisman Trophy. Some people saying he might be the best quarterback in the University of Miami history with all those great players, Warren Sapp, Ed Reed. It's must-see TV on Friday night. The Miami Hurricanes going against a Virginia Tech team that's 2-2. And remember this, Virginia Tech had a very disheartening loss to open the season against Vanderbilt.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Miami rolls in this one. They're just better. They play well at home. And we'll see whether or not the hurricane, which is scheduled to come through town here in Atlanta, either late Wednesday or Thursday, if that's already cleared through Miami and that doesn't become a factor, I think the Hurricanes down in Miami at 4-0 will go to 5-0. On Saturday, you got a noon game between ranked teams. Number 20, Oklahoma State. They'll be going to Manhattan against Kansas State. Vincent, your thoughts on this one?
when you look at both teams, I want to say this is a game of the pretenders. Last week, Oklahoma State let me down. They lost to Utah. What I want to ask about what's going on in Oklahoma State is what is happening with y'all star running back, Ollie Gordon II. He's only got 241 yards on the season. What's happening over there, Mike Gundy? He had 30-some yards against Utah last week. And Kansas State. Don't hold this against me, Harper, because I know how you think. Last week, you was looking at me when I was talking about Avery Johnson, the quarterback at Kansas State, and how I was saying he was a hell of a player. He let me down last Saturday night against BYU. 3 interceptions as BYU destroyed Kansas State. This game right here, whoever loses this game is going to be looking on the outs trying to contend for the Big 12 championship.
Yep, absolutely. Alan Bowman, he's 6'2", he's a senior, completing 62% of his passes. He's got over 1,100 yards. He's got 10 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So be interesting to see if he and the Cowboys are able to bounce back. Number 15, Louisville against number 16, Notre Dame. One of these two teams is going to come away with a win at 3 o'clock on the Peacock Network. What are your thoughts about these two in the matchup between them?
I told people I like when Jeff Braun decided to take the job at Louisville. He came home. Remember, he was a star quarterback in Louisville in the early 90s. Outstanding quarterback in Tyler Shaw, who was at Texas Tech. Now you see what type of Louisville team they have. They're a very dangerous football team based on the fact they beat Georgia Tech last week, 31-19. Notre Dame. I'm going to be brutally honest today on 100 yards of football. I love you, Marcus Freeman. You had me thinking after y'all went to Texas A&M and won that opening game, I was talking about national championship. But you come back and you wet the bed against Northern Illinois. I'm going to tell you this, Marcus Freeman. You end up losing to Louisville on Saturday. You know what they're going to be saying up there, touchdown Jesus. They replace coaches quicker than anything. Yeah. And word on the street is that Urban Meyer, that's his dream job. Back to you, Harper.
Didn't know that. Yep. Jeremiah Love, Riley Leonard, and Jadarian Price are 3 running backs. If you include the quarterback as a guy who also runs, they account for 89% of the Irish rushing yards. So you stop any one of those 3 and you got a pretty good chance of forcing a punt. Irish are in the top 10 in terms of defenses right now. They only give up 9 points a game. Louisville isn't that far behind. They're 13th. They give up 11 points a game, but they score 45. So they're obviously a team that's a threat offensively. And I think Louisville can win this ball game. I really do. I don't feel that same way about Michigan State, although this will be their first conference game. At 7 o'clock on the Peacock Network, they host number 3 Ohio State. Your thoughts on this one, Vincent?
Last week, Michigan State lost a real heartbreaking game to Boston College on the road. Adam Childs, their quarterback, struggled mightily. Yes, I really had him highly rated coming over from Oregon State. He transferred with his head coach, Jonathan Smith, and I thought he was going to be the next big thing in the Big Ten, but he played very poorly. Now Ohio State. I heard a comment. I think it was either by somebody on ESPN, it might have been Urban Meyer, but they said this Ohio State team under Ryan Day is the most talented team he's ever had. Will Howard at quarterback, Trayvon Henderson, Quayshawn Jerkins, Jeremiah Smith, Caleb Downs, NFL talent all through the roster. You know what? The Buckeyes are going to roll on Saturday night, and they're going to make a statement. That's to everybody out there who's want to win the national championship. You better look at this Buckeyes team because the 68 super sophomores are coming back. Yeah. Rex Kern, Jack Tatum, still wagging. Ohio State is for real.
Yeah. Quinshon Judkins averaging just under 10 yards a carry. How do you stop that? Every time you give him the ball, it's first down. Unbelievable. They score 52 points on average. Ohio State does. It's number 4 in the nation, but they only give up 6 points. That's also number 4 in the nation. Tough to score on. Nothing in Michigan State's stats come anywhere close. They average 25 points a ball game. That's 93rd in the nation. They give up about 14, which is 25th. I think Ohio State rolls. Next game, number 19. Who would have thought that Illinois would be in the conversation at this time of the year? Maybe the playoff, maybe, but they got to go to Penn State first.
Penn State, James Franklin coming into the season, everybody was saying, hey, man, this Penn State team needs to make the playoff. Their quarterback, Drew Aller, is playing off the chains.
Yep.
Throwing, I think he's got over 600 yards passing. Penn State has looked real good offensively. They're everything deserving to be ranked number 9. Before I get into Illinois, I'm going to be very nice today, and I'm going to turn it over to you, to Harper, because you love the quarterback from Stockville, Mississippi. People don't know that this young man from California, IA, off the air, was really raving about the man under center, a former Ole Miss player who transferred to Illinois. The floor is yours, Harper. Talk about their Illini team.
Well, he's only a junior, but he's completing 71% of his passes. He's got 10 touchdowns already this season, no interceptions. That's the thing that I think is important. They're 4-0 right now. They haven't been there in a while, not for decades, but Illinois is something, especially if they go into Penn State at Beaver Stadium and they win this ball game. Now they're legit. They've got a reason to celebrate there.
Harper, you forgot to mention his name. You love him.
Luke Altmaier is who I mentioned. Yes, absolutely. And then Caden Fagan also, good ball player right there. Pat Bryant, 20 catches, 309 yards. He's got 6 touchdowns. I'm going to tell you right now, I think they can pull an upset here.
All I'm going to say is this. This is a very good Illinois football team. Happy for Brent Bingler, who's the head coach at Arkansas. I think Arkansas didn't give him a fair chance. But this guy can coach football. Remember, he was taking Wisconsin to all those Rose Bowls, and he was coaching a guy by the name of, what's his name? J.J. Watt. And you look at Illinois, it's good that Illinois is back being good in college football because you know why? The history of the fighting Illini. Red Grange, J.C. Caroline, Jeff George, Tony Eason.
Dick Butkus. Don't forget the man.
Thank you. It'll be great. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm going to stay with my man on the screen, my business partner, my co-host, Harper LeBel. I wouldn't be surprised if their Illini shock Penn State.
Two teams are very similar. Illinois averages 38 points a ball game. Penn State 41. Illinois gives up about 12 points a ball game, and Penn State has averaged 13. So it'll be a close one. But my dream for visions and sugar plums for Illinois is based on this week. They can continue should they pull out an upset here. Next game we want to look at, this is the big one now. University of Georgia, traveling west. They're going to end up at number 4 Alabama. Both teams are 3-0 right now. The game is at 7:30 on ABC. It will be the game of the week. What more do you need, Vincent? This is you don't even have to say anything. It's just this is much CTV.
You look at Saturday. Saturday is a day, if you're working, that you might need to take off. It's what they say down here in the South. Football is very serious. It's about the life of the South built when you talk about college football. And you talk about 2 programs that's had a tremendous amount of history, Georgia and Alabama. I'm looking at this game, and I'm taking the Georgia Bulldogs simply because Georgia has won 40 straight SEC games. You know, the last time they lost was during the pandemic when they lost to Florida and Cal Trash and Cal Pitts. But this is the thing I like about the Bulldogs. I remember in 2016 when Kirby Smart took the job. I went on my Twitter account and I said, hey, man, I sent them a real nice tweet. I said, God bless, congratulations on getting the job at Georgia. You know what Kirby Smart did? Within 30 minutes, he texted me back and said, thank you. I know he was special. I know some players that played with him in Georgia and said the guy was nothing but football, one of the most greatest character guys in the game. And look how he's built that program. Look at all those NFL players that he's had drafted. Yep. And the biggest thing that I've been listening to everybody this week to talk about the game, but a lot of people picking Alabama. And I even heard a former Georgia player, I'm going to call you out, David Pollack. He said Georgia doesn't have the type of skilled players they have over the years. And I know 2 weeks ago, Georgia only scored 13 points against Kentucky. They had a real rough game. And then I even heard some people say Carson Beck is good, but not elite. And he's already been, I want to say, people saying he's a top 10 pick in the 2025 NFL draft. So when you get in your fan base saying that, you know what that does? That's telling your football team motivation.
Yeah.
You're not respecting me. So I'm going to tell you, Mr. David Pollack, You must forget that y'all still got Dominic Lovett. Y'all got Dylan Bell. Y'all got Oscar Depp. Y'all got Trayvon Antion, Travis' little brother. Y'all still got one of the best offensive lines, even though Tate Ratledge might be out of this game. And Carson Beck, even though he didn't play well against Kentucky, he going to bring his A game against the University of Alabama. Now for you Roll Tide fans. Y'all had a very impressive win over Wisconsin. Caleb DuBois done an outstanding job. Jalen Melrose looked like a Heisman Trophy candidate. Justin Hayes has played real well. But I'm going to tell you, from the running back position, who has Alabama played so far this year? South Florida, Western Kentucky, and Wisconsin. Okay, everybody talking about how good Alabama defense is. Especially, I'm going to call people out today. On the station down there at 100.9, Tide, you know who I'm talking about. You got, what's my man name? Marvin, I can't think of your name. You played fullback on the national championship team. Whip Sanders and your son Barry. I'm just going to throw y'all out today. Mr. Fowler, y'all talking about how good Alabama is defensively and how good your offense is. I know Ryan Williams is an outstanding freshman, but the last time I checked, I'm going to start with the offense side of the ball for Georgia. Don't think Mike Bobo is going to have an A-game plan for the University of Alabama. Y'all don't get pressure on Carson Beck. It's going to be something serious. And as far as Mr. Ryan Williams, I know y'all talking about he the next great college wide receiver. That's no question about it. But the thing I don't understand, are y'all disrespecting the Georgia's defense? Mikael Williams, top 10 pick in the 2025 NFL draft. Malachi Starks, the best safety that's going to go in the 2025 NFL draft. Dalen Everett, a highly rated cornerback. This is a Georgia defense that's top 5. So I'm taking the Dogs on Saturday night. Back to you, Mr. Harper.
Well, if you look at the numbers, Jalen Milroe has 8 touchdowns so far this year. Carson Beck has 7. Rushing the football, Alabama, 238 yards per game. Georgia is 145, so there's a big difference there. Points for, Georgia scores about 31 points a game. Alabama is at 49. They're number 7 in the nation. But the one part of the defense that you mentioned just a moment ago, points against, Georgia is averaging only 6 points that they give up on defense. They're number 3 in the nation. Alabama gives up 8. So they're number 6. Not much difference between the two in terms of both having great defenses. And I think both of those defenses will come into play. It'll be an under game, in my opinion. There aren't going to be a lot of points scored. And if they are, they're going to be of high value. So what a great game to watch, though. You may want to take the afternoon off just so you can rest up and make sure that you see that game at 7:30. Our last game in the Super 7, Arizona travels to number 10, Utah. You mentioned them just a few moments ago with their big win that they got last week. Utah is for real, although they may have an issue at quarterback.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. Even though Cam Rising might not play on Saturday, I'm very confident in Isaac Wilson, who took over and led them to a big road win over Oklahoma State. Mr. Wilson is Zach Wilson's little baby brother. So I don't think Utah is going to have any problems. Arizona, y'all struggled 2 weeks ago against Kansas State. And it's a revenge game for Utah. Because you know Mr. Cal Whittingham personally, Harper. And look what Arizona did last year. They beat Utah 42-17. But you know what? They scored a touchdown with 30 seconds remaining. Threw a touchdown pass. This is a revenge game for Utah. Saturday night up there on the campus of the University of Utah. You think Cal Whittingham forgot that? You Arizona Wildcats, y'all in for a really beaten afternoon or night. Revenge is something else. Back to you, Harper.
The Utes are averaging 32 points a game. That's 54th. It's about average for the country, but they only give up 13. So they're in the top 20 as far as that's concerned. Cam Rising has an injured hand that he got against Baylor. So if he does not go, it'll be Isaac Wilson. As mentioned, 5 touchdowns, but 5 interceptions for the young man. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not he's able to keep the ball on his side of the line of scrimmage. That's it for our 7 games that we have. We call them the Super 7. Vincent, final thoughts before we get out?
I'd like to thank you today, Harper. You did an outstanding job. But I'd like to thank the staff for 100 yards of football, but not being hard on me today. I know everybody's looking for me to say this. The University of Memphis, you let me down. You had the most important win last week in school history when you went to Florida State. And what did I say last week on the Super 7? I said, hold up. You, Harper, especially was trying to pump me up about Memphis. And I told you Navy averaged 297 yards on the ground. I don't have to say no more. Look at the stat line and look what the quarterback, Blake Hovan, did against Memphis last week. Yep. Very disappointing for me last weekend watching my Memphis Tigers get beat by the Naval Academy. Y'all be blessed. Back to you.
Blake Hovan, I said the one guy you got to stop is Blake Hovan. You stop him, you got a chance. And unfortunately, they didn't do it. And I know that Utah State just was invited into the Pac-7 now. So it's not the Pac-6 anymore. We're still waiting for Memphis. We're still waiting. We're hoping that they end up going to the Pac, but we'll see how that turns out. All right, everybody, we hope you have a great week. Enjoy it. A lot of good games to watch, and there's one great one at 7:30. We'll be watching as well. Look forward to another episode of 100 Yards of Football next week that we'll be talking about those games. But in the meanwhile, have a great week yourselves. We appreciate you watching. Thank you for participating with us. Enjoy the show.